The Euganei people were described in ancient tradition as one of the oldest and most mysterious populations of early Italy. Ancient writers placed the Euganei in northern Italy, especially in the region between the southern foothills of the Alps and the plains of what is now Veneto. They were regarded as one of the earliest native peoples of Italy, living in the region long before the rise of Rome, and even before the expansion of the Etruscans. Because of this reputation, ancient historians often considered the Euganei to be among the original inhabitants of the Italian peninsula. According to ancient tradition, the Euganei once occupied large parts of the Po River Valley, a fertile region of rivers and open plains well suited to agriculture and animal husbandry. They lived in small rural communities and supported themselves through farming and herding. Their settlements were often located on hills, which provided natural protection and a clear view of the surrounding land. The area later known as the Euganean Hills preserved the memory of this early population, and these hills became one of the most important geographical reminders of their presence in ancient Italy. Ancient authors describe how the position of the Euganei changed after the arrival of the Veneti people. According to some traditions, groups of Veneti settled along the Adriatic coast and gradually pushed the Euganei inland into the hill country. These events were sometimes connected with migrations said to have taken place after the Trojan War. Some ancient writers claimed that the Veneti were descended from the Veneti, allies of Troy who had travelled westward after the fall of the city. Whether or not this tradition reflects real events, it suggests that the Euganei were gradually displaced by later populations. The way of life of the Euganei appears to have been relatively simple compared with that of later Italian civilizations. Ancient descriptions portray them not as builders of large cities, but as people living in scattered villages. Their settlements probably consisted of wooden and stone houses surrounded by fields and pastures. This rural lifestyle distinguished them from more urbanized peoples, such as the Etruscans and later the Romans, whose societies were organized around towns and political centers. The language spoken by the Euganei is unknown. It is not even certain whether it belonged to the Indo-European family of languages. This uncertainty has led some scholars to believe that the Euganei represented a very ancient population layer in Italy, possibly descended from prehistoric inhabitants of the region. For this reason, the Euganei are sometimes considered one of the oldest identifiable peoples of northern Italy. Very little is known about the religion of the Euganei. It is likely that their beliefs were closely connected with the natural environment. Mountains, rivers, forests, and springs may have been regarded as sacred places. The hilltop locations of many settlements suggest that certain high places may have held special significance. Later, people sometimes established sanctuaries in the same areas, which may indicate a continuity of sacred traditions from earlier times. Archaeological discoveries suggest that populations associated with the Euganei existed throughout the Bronze Age and early Iron Age in northern Italy. Excavations have revealed settlements and burial sites belonging to early agricultural communities. These societies were familiar with metalworking and maintained trade connections with neighbouring regions. However, no written records survive that can be directly linked to the Euganei, and their history must therefore be reconstructed, mainly from archaeological evidence and later literary traditions. Over time, the Euganei gradually disappeared as a distinct people. By the Roman period, they were no longer described as an independent population. Their descendants were probably absorbed into neighbouring groups, such as the Veneti, Celtic tribes, and eventually the Romans themselves. The name Euganei survived mainly in geography, especially in the region of the Euganean Hills, where the memory of the ancient people endured. The Euganei represent one of the earliest historical layers of Italy. They did not build large empires or leave famous monuments. Yet their story is important because it reveals what northern Italy may have looked like before the rise of classical civilizations. The Euganei lived in small rural communities closely connected to the land, representing a world that existed long before Roman power reshaped the peninsula.